So thank you all so much for joining us. Best-selling author Christopher Farnsworth will discuss his new thriller, Robert B. Parker's Buried Secrets, the latest Jesse Stone novel, in conversation with best-selling author and TV writer Ben H. Winters in this installment of Author Hours in Massachusetts. So a little bit about Ben first. Ben Winters is the author of over a dozen novels, including most recently Big Time. His other books include the New York Times best-selling Underground Airlines and the award-winning Last Policeman trilogy. As a TV writer, he worked on Legion, the Apple TV show Manhunt, and was the creator of one of my favorites, the CBS drama Tracker. And then Christopher Farnsworth worked as a reporter in Arizona and California before selling his first screenplay. He now pens successful crime and thriller novels. His books have been published in over a dozen countries and translated into 10 languages and have been optioned for film and television. A loyal reader of Robert B. Parker since his high school days, this is Chris's first Jesse Stone novel, and he currently resides in Los Angeles with his family. So, folks, let's give a big virtual round of applause to Christopher and Ben for joining us here tonight. And Ben, you can take it away. Thanks so much.
I like that. Thank you so much, Robert. What a lovely introduction. And I'm going to presume that this is just a resounding ovation that we are receiving, Chris. Because it's virtual,
Oh
so
yeah,
we can make of it what we will.
we can imagine anything, so we might as well imagine that it's like, please, please, everyone,
Please,
sit
guys,
down.
everybody, no, sit down. It's not necessary.
It's not going to be that great.
No, it is great. And it's great to be here in my house. Chris, I always call you Chris. Should I call you Christopher for purposes of
Yeah,
literary,
my professional name, Chris, is fine.
it's funny to be my nom de plume is my own name, but just fancier.
Yeah.
All right,
No,
Chris,
the joke was that only my mother and one other person I've known since grade school calls me Christopher. But now that it's on the books, it's a lot of people. So
there you go.
yeah,
And now all these folks. So okay,
yeah,
great. I'll call you Christopher for the purposes of the interview. So do you want to start off, Christopher, by reading a little bit from the book? And I can
yeah,
try.
yeah. I thought I would get you the first chapter so that people can get an idea of just how Jesse Stone is starting again here. So this is chapter one of Robert B. Parker's Buried Secrets. The book is dedicated in loving memory to Philippa Bus Roosevelt, and this is chapter one. Jesse Stone was on his way home when his deputy chief, Molly Crane, interrupted him on the radio for a welfare check. A guy is worried about his friend. Says he hasn't seen him in a couple weeks and now he won't answer the door, Molly told him. Can't someone else do it? It had already been a long day. 3 of his officers were out sick, COVID again, which was why Molly was covering dispatch. Jesse himself had been on multiple patrol calls and was looking forward to sitting down and watching whatever ESPN had to offer. Suit's breaking up the fight at the scupper. Everyone else is busy, Molly said. Serve and protect. It's in the job description. Yeah, but I'm the chief. I'm supposed to tell you what to do. It's adorable that you think that, Molly said. Anyway, it's not like you had plans. Your girlfriend left you for the New York Times. You know, I can fire you anytime I want, Jesse said. Good luck. You'd be lost without me. Fine. Where is it? See? Molly read him the address. The house was in a nice neighborhood on the good side of paradise, but it had seen better days. The paint was peeling, and the wood was splintered and rotting in places. The lawn was mostly weeds and crabgrass. Deferred maintenance, Jesse had heard it called. When the people inside the house had to choose between upkeep and property taxes. Even in a place with a median income as high as Paradise's, it happened to some of the older residents as their lives extended past their savings account. As Jesse drove up, he saw a younger man in the driveway, his worried face framed by a thin beard. He wore a leather jacket, black jeans, and boots, despite the early spring warmth. He looked like he was late for a club opening somewhere. Are you the police? He asked, as Jesse got out of his Explorer. Not from around here, Jesse figured. I'm Chief Stone, Jesse said, showing the young man his badge. He looked at the badge and then at Jesse as if trying to make up his mind. True, Jesse didn't really dress like a cop. Perks of being the chief of a 12-person force. He wore jeans and a polo shirt and sneakers and a ball cap with Paradise PD printed on it. Usually a jacket to hide the Glock on his belt, but again, today was warm. This is the part where you tell me your name, Jesse said helpfully. Oh, right, the man said. Sorry, I'm Matthew Peebles. Can I see some ID? Jesse said. Peebles? Really? Matthew Peebles appeared taken aback. Why do you need to see my ID? It's a cop thing, Jesse shrugged. We like to make sure people are who they say they are. Oh, of course, Peebles said. He handed over a driver's license and a thick wallet attached to a chain. It was from New York. Despite the odds against it, Peebles really was his name. Jesse handed the ID back. You said you were worried about your friend inside the house? Well, my parents' friend more than mine, really, Matthew said. His name is Phil Burton. He's old. I mean, he's an elderly gentleman. I come out from the city and check on him every now and then for my folks. We talk on the phone, too. But I haven't heard from him for a while, so I got worried. The propensity of people who lived in New York to refer to it as the city as if there were no others wasn't lost on Jesse. Nobody ever did that in Los Angeles when he lived there. He wondered if it was them overcompensating. You drove 4 hours up here to check on him? He wasn't answering, and like I said, I was worried. Would you mind calling him again? Peebles called again with his voice on speaker so Jesse could hear. There was a generic voicemail greeting, and the mailbox was full. Are you going to check in on him or what? Peebles asked. He seemed to be growing increasingly agitated. Let's go knock on the door, Jesse said. He knocked on the door, which wasn't in any better shape than the rest of the house. Then he rang the bell. No answer to either. You sure he's home? Well, pretty sure, Matthew said. He usually spends a couple weeks out of the country every winter. He doesn't like the cold much anymore. But I thought he was back now. Jesse rang the bell again. Can you kick it in? Matthew asked. Jesse looked at him. I'd rather not do that if he's just on vacation. I think your friend wants to come home to a door that works. Well, are you going to do anything? Matthew asked, now clearly aggravated. Jesse nodded. I think I might try the back way first. He went around the side of the house and found a gate. It was stuck as if something was pressing against it. Jesse sighed. Serve and protect, Molly said. Let's see her come out here and do this, he thought. He hopped up, caught the top of the gate with both hands, and felt the familiar twinge in his bad shoulder, a relic of the injury that had ended his days playing baseball. He ignored it and scrambled up without looking too ridiculous, he thought. He swung his body over the gate and came down in the yard, which looked like it was auditioning for a landfill, Jesse thought. There was a pile of garbage under his feet, heaped up against the gate. The random junk was holding it shut. Old tires, layers of cardboard boxes, plastic restaurant-sized jugs of condiments and sauces, both empty and full. A child's wagon, a stack of broken lawn furniture, heavy black garbage bags. Jesse shifted his balance, trying to stay upright, and picked his way toward the back. He found a sliding glass door half open and put on the blue nitrile gloves he always kept in his pocket before walking inside. The door opened to what must have been the kitchen, and the inside of the house was even more crowded with junk than the yard. The counters were hidden under boxes, cases of motor oil unopened, stacks of mail that must have gone back decades, old phone books. Where do you even get phone books anymore? Jesse wondered. Fast food wrappers and delivery bags in piles, most of them with rotting food and grease stains. There was also a familiar smell. Jesse knew that odor. It was not a pleasant one. He tried to breathe through his mouth. There was a narrow path in among all the debris. It led to the living room, where Jesse found dozens of moldering cardboard file boxes, some stacked as high as his head, arranged in a semicircle around an old couch. And the couch was where Jesse found the body.
Amazing. I can hear applause from across the country and around the world. I love that. I've read that a bunch of times.
The applause is thunderous.
Fantastic. So, Chris, I want to start by talking about the whole idea of like Robert B. Parker's Buried Secrets by Christopher Farnsworth. It's like this interesting literary thing, right? Because it is a Chris Farnsworth novel, but it's also a Robert Parker novel. And I want to start by having you tell us, like, what is your personal history with Robert Parker's work? Like, when did you start reading him? How long have you read him? How do you feel about him? How did you come to this gig?
Right. Well, like we've talked about, I've been reading Parker since high school. He was, I'm sure I must have seen the TV show at some point when I was a kid, and I don't remember exactly what my first Parker novel was, but I know it was Spencer, and I'm pretty sure that it must have been I came in around the time of A Catskill Eagle, and the time when Spencer and Susan Silverman were split up and on opposite sides of the coast sometimes. And it was, he was just different. Spencer was different than the private detectives I'd seen on TV. I was still, new to most genre stuff then, but I would read anything with good guys and bad guys. I loved that stuff.
Yeah.
And so for me, he was kind of like the gateway drug to other PI novels. Like from him, I learned about Marlowe and Sam Spade, and I started reading the Fletch novels, and from there, I moved on to the hard stuff. but um, but it was always, and like so. Eventually, I went on to college where I started reading Thomas Pynchon and Milan Kundera and Chaucer and William Blake. But on the weekends, or on summer break, there was always a Spencer novel or a detective novel or Carl Hyacin or something, Tom Wolfe, something that was purely for enjoyment. And it took me a long time, but I eventually realized how much effort and work went into creating these tight little mysteries and detective novels. Just as much effort and work as went into, like, say, the Book of Laughter and Forgetting by Milan Kundera.
So it's interesting. It's something I want to ask you, but I can skip to it now. Like there is a
Mm-hmm.
particular style to Parker and the Jesse Stone novels and the Spencer novels where each chapter is quite compact, as you say. They are short,
Right.
you pack a punch, and there's this feeling of sort of no words wasted. And I wonder if, and your own writing is excellent but different than that. And I sort of wondered if how challenging it was or exciting to kind of fit yourself into that mold. You know what I mean? Like that style.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I think it was a good lesson because I do tend to go on more in my own stuff. I do tend to babble on a bit,
You and me
and
both.
just rattle on. And with Parker, I read all the books in the Stone series before I started writing this one again. I got to work on this one, and it taught me the value of just the of knowing when to shut up,
Mm,
of allowing the reader to take it from there.
mm.
Like, I think my own tendency to keep going on and on is to make sure, do you get it? Do you get it? Back when I started writing, not started writing for the first time, but back in college when I was like, I'm going to do this seriously and everything. One of my teachers was like, you really want to make sure people get the point. You just like keep hammering and hammering. I think what he said was in the margins of one of my papers was, he's like, your writing is loud, clear, and obnoxious. And it's like, and he's like, no, that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
But it, it, I really want people to like get it.
Yeah.
And Parker and and Elmore Leonard and all the greats, they let people walk away with their own impressions. They let people figure it out on their own. They trust the reader.
And wonder things and wonder
Yeah.
things. Sort of like, yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah. And so that's sort of the benefit of doing less, right? If you're doing less, then the reader's doing more. And if the reader's doing more, then they're engaged, right? They care.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you think about it like, the, there's somebody out there has a chance to write a great thesis or paper on the similarities between Raymond Carver and Raymond Chandler, like just where they both learned to stop sentences, where their editors told them that's enough.
Yeah.
They both write incredibly great short stories where um, a lot of stuff is under the surface like an iceberg, and you have to sort of guess at its shape.
So when you are writing, when the assignment is to write as Robert Parker, do you sort of take that literally and go, I'm going to sort of ventriloquize, if that's how you say it, this famous voice? Or do you go, well, it's a Chris Farnsworth book, but I'm sort of bending or shading my style toward his style? Like, to what extent are you really
Right.
just trying to do an impression, and to what extent are you just trying to tell a great story in that vein, I guess?
Yeah. I think it'd be a disservice to the reader to try to do an impression. I think only Parker could be Parker. And like I've said before, every writer is still themselves, and no writer can get away from their own style. Like, there's little quirks and stuff that I can still hear in this, and sentence fragments that are my own. But I do think that it was part of the job to try to make it, if not ventriloquize, make an echo of Parker and give, because readers who come to the Jesse Stone series and the Spencer books, they carry they've been carrying this, for decades. They know Stone and Spencer and Sonny Randall better than I ever could. They've lived with them much longer than I have.
Probably some
And I'm
source
not
of
talking about,
conversation.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. They know these people. And so I think they want to hear, I think, the familiar cadences. Um, I think one thing I've said before too is that Parker is just funnier than I am. So I'm trying to be funnier than I usually am.
You're trying to write in a more comic mode than you would necessarily, to put in more sort of bits and like even just in the chapter you read, the sort of attitude he's getting,
Yeah,
from his, and the sort of like the sense of play is a little bit more heightened, perhaps.
right.
Um,
And it's more, there's more of a sort of wry sense of the world. Like there's the narrator, the internal narrator is Jesse, and Jesse has a sort of vantage point where he's seen most of the bad things that humanity can do, and he still manages to find people sort of funny and amusing.
Totally. Totally. Which I think you do too, but it isn't necessarily where you would sort of the tone that you would go for when you're writing. So give us an example of one or two things that are in this book, plot wise or voice wise, that mark it out as a Chris Farnsworth book that readers of Parker or of the other authors who've done Parker wouldn't
Mm.
do. That would be something that is unique to you, if that makes sense.
Oh, that is a good question. I think that when we start getting to the hitmen, Rainey and Elliot, the guy Elliot is an old retired hitman, which is not a profession that allows a lot of people to retire.
Sure.
He's a very dangerous guy, and he's not that old, but he's. It reminds me of a Terry Pratchett line. In that line of work, you have to wonder about the skills that enable a man to survive that long. He's very
Mm-hmm.
dangerous, even though he
Mm-hmm.
doesn't necessarily look it. So that guy is definitely a Chris Farnsworth creation. And the fact that he has just this sort of coiled lethality, like a snake, but he's sort of camouflaged in the pattern around him. Everybody sees an ordinary, middle-aged, early retiree, and he's just dangerous.
I love it. Yep. So I guess my question is, or one question is like, is it extra fun writing a Parker book as opposed to writing a book that is wholly your own? Is it liberating in some way? Or does it, like what is the joy of it? Where do you find the joy of it?
Absolutely. It's really great to be somebody else for a while. Like I think writers, I think especially, we can get into our own heads and we're like, oh, this is terrible, this is awful. I'm no good at this. I'm never going to be good at this. Or you spiral and you're like, I don't understand what I meant to do with this to begin with. With Parker, you have your mission brief, you have an instruction to go out, and um, that it's got to that you have to accomplish something. And Parker did all the hard work. He created these characters. They have their own foibles. They have their own characteristics. You don't have to figure out why Jesse does something because Parker encoded that into him already.
Right.
So all I have to do is find a situation for him to do it. So yeah, it's incredibly liberating. With my own people, my own characters, I'm still trying to figure out why they do stuff. I still have to figure out the thing that winds them up. Whereas with Parker, it's an engine, and all you have to do really is put them in on the track.
Totally. Totally.
Yeah,
So there is a freedom to it. That's sort of what I wondered is.
yeah.
And I think people are curious, like a gig like this, how much what level of instructions are you getting, or limits are they putting, I guess, the estate or whatever, on what you can
Hmm.
and can't do with these characters, with these beloved characters that you've inherited?
Right. I mean, obviously, you're not allowed to kill Jesse Stone, and I mean, I drop a lot of bodies in my books,
Spoiler
so
alert.
that was, yeah. It's like page 5. Can you imagine getting the notes? It's like page 5, Chris, you killed Jesse Stone. That's a bit of a no-no. No,
Well,
the estate and the agent who represents the estate, they give you the freedom to do really. They know that you've taken this job and that the guidelines. You know that you're supposed to be continuing on a legacy, and I'd like to think they wouldn't have chosen me for the legacy if I didn't respect it and I didn't care about it. There was no interference. There's no big Bible like on a TV show, or I understand like some of the Star Wars books have big thick
Sure.
notebooks of like you're not allowed to contradict any of this stuff.
Right, and also
Um,
all the lore and the history and stuff, like the sort of
right.
whole universe of it. So they don't send you a
Yeah.
binder or anything. There's no
No, there's no binder, which is pretty cool. That you're given the chance to find your own way with the characters and make your own mistakes. That's pretty great. And then you hand it in, and I was very nervous because I wondered, did I do this right? And they were like, yeah, it's great, it's fine.
I mean, do another one, right? You must have done something
Yeah,
right. Another
yeah,
one's
they
in
gave me a chance. Yeah, they clearly liked this one enough. I'm doing book 23 right now.
amazing. And do you have, I already know the answer to this, but tell us, did you have interaction with, is it Allison Galen who's writing the what's her name? The Sunny
Right,
book?
the Sonny Randall
And
books.
then
Yeah,
there's also Spencer books being written right now. So
yeah,
is
by
there
Mike Lupica.
by the great Mike
I
Lupick?
would love it. I would love it if we could get together. Honestly, I would like. I mean, there's nothing stopping that, but no, no, there's no. We're just all sort of like wandering out in the wilderness on our own. Uh, but I was really kind of. I was. I felt good. I was reading Allison Galen's latest Sonny Randall when this book was already done, and Sonny and Jesse used to be involved. They used to be an
Mhm.
item, and
Mhm.
she has Sonny think about Jesse, and it's very much the same way I have Jesse think about Sonny. And I thought, so at least we're working from the same page there. That was
So it's
nice.
all now like you're all just part of the Robert Parker extended universe, and there's a sense
Yeah,
of overlap. Yeah, it's great. It's great.
yeah.
Um, so here's a fun one. Like, because I was trying to think about this before today, like what other authors, what other dead authors, I guess, do you think would be fun? Because I don't want to, you don't want to go around taking anybody's intellectual property that they're working on, but who else would be fun to do this with? Because there's a distinctive style here, and there is a set of existing characters, but
Mhm.
there's also all this kind of room to maneuver, like you were saying. You can build new tracks to put
Right.
these on. I'm trying to think of what other character worlds would it be fun to do this in? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, well, our friend Joe Ade did a Philip Marlowe book,
Yeah,
uh, and
the
I thought he
Sunset
did a great job.
He did a great
But yeah,
job. Marlowe's tough though. Marlowe's a little different because it's so brooding and
so dark.
so much yeah, it's so much about the sort of mankind's foibles and the kind of like the endless the pitiless nature of humanity. It's like it's a little less fun. You know what I
It's a
mean?
little
Than
a little more grim. Yeah,
a
I
little
I
more
would
grim.
love
But
to.
Yeah, Joy did a great job. Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to do probably a Fletch book, but I don't know that. I mean, since Gregory MacDonald passed, I've just been waiting for the next one. Or you know what? No, more than a Fletch book, a Flynn book. Flynn was the detective in who he's a detective inspector on the Boston police force, and he's the only inspector. And it turns out he's a spy who's hiding out from all these people who want to kill him. But he's
Wait,
just
who's this? What is this?
Flynn. The Flynn. It was
It's
another
out.
series started by the guy who wrote Fletch,
Gregory
and
McDonald. Okay. Okay, I love
by
that.
Gregory MacDonald, and Francis Xavier Flynn is his
Okay.
name, and he's he's the guy who arrests or tries to arrest Fletch in the book Confess Fletch, and where Fletch is wrongly accused of murder. Um, and as it turns out, he's actually a spy who's been inserted into the Boston Police Department to just hide him there while other people are looking for
Oh,
him.
amazing. That sounds fun.
Yeah, it's an incredible character, and I was always really sad that McDonald did not do more books about it. So I would love to do. They were really prescient too for our own. McDonald had an incredibly smart view of politics in the world, and most of his books tend to prefigure where we are right now.
I mean, I
So
gotta
Flynn
read
would be a perfect.
it.
He'd be a perfect character for the political moment we're in.
Amazing. All right, I'm putting that on my list.
Yeah,
Fantastic. So much to read. So
I know it's awful. Yeah,
it's awful.
it's just
Speaking
too
of new
much.
books, so is there anything that you learned from writing this book that you will take away when you're working on the next book that is a Chris Farnsworth book? Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
That like what lessons have you learned about writing or about your own voice or anything that is
hmm
applicable to what you want to what you're doing?
I think the best um, lesson I've learned is like to shut up and take myself a little less seriously. Like that there's a time that you can. I'm writing my own detective book now because I was having such fun with Jesse Stone, and I want to write my own detective, my own character like this, my own Poirot or Benoit Blanc or Flynn or Jesse Stone. You know, I wanted to see if I could fit into that my stuff into that template. And yeah, it gave me a new tool, which is basically it's okay to stop the chapter. It's okay to, it's okay to move on. It's okay to let this stuff go. And I think that, yeah, that's the great thing about Parker's books, is that he's like, he knows exactly where to leave you. He knows exactly how like Elmore Leonard says, he leaves out the part that people tend to skip anyway.
Totally. Totally. So, all right. So we can expect that the next Chris Farnsworth novel will be a little more economical, a little bit less telling.
Right. Hopefully a little less telly, a little more showy, but hopefully a little smarter. I hope I get a little smarter with each book.
Your novels are pretty smart. It's just different.
Oh,
It's just a different mode. And I mean, I think
yeah.
like every book we write, we theoretically take away some lessons, but certainly in my experience, every time I start something new, I'm like, I have no idea how to write a book. How does anybody do this?
Absolutely.
It's
Yeah.
like
No,
this,
I know. Each time I know how to write the book I just finished. That's
yeah.
easy, but that's done.
Yeah, and it took a whole book
Every
to figure
time.
out.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Thank God I got to the end of that. But now I have to write a new one and I have no idea what I'm doing. It's like you forget every time.
It's
It's
exactly.
yeah.
What
It's
about
yeah.
like, here's a weird question, like physically, like, because
Hmm.
I have very specific things that I do when I'm in the middle of a book, like in terms of like when I start writing and how long I can work and whether I work upstairs or downstairs, like when you
Sure.
were writing Parker, was there anything different about your writing routine, or is it just like another book? Does that make sense?
No, I get that. Yeah. It was much more like I had to write the end of this one pretty quickly. I think I've mentioned.
Yeah.
And because it came about, I kind of came into the middle. The last writer wasn't able to do a Jesse Stone book because he'd moved on to Spencer, and so I had a
Oh,
slightly abbreviated deadline schedule,
okay.
and so it was much more just like hunched over, looked down at the keyboard, much more like being a reporter used to be. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
got the same,
Go, go, go. Yeah.
yeah, just like I just got the same adrenaline from it, and the fact that it was all short takes, that it's all quick, like the chapters are much shorter. Uh, it was much more like ripping the page out and moving on to the next thing.
So fun. So fun. All right. Do you want to give us, before we go, start asking, see if we have some questions, but
Sure, sure.
any spoilers for the next one? Do you want to give us because I know you're almost done, right? Sort of almost done?
I'm
Ish.
almost done. I'm done-ish.
I don't know if your
No, I
editors.
mean I can give you the general plot is that a hedge fund guy moves to paradise and he decides to lock horns with Jesse. Um, and it just become he figures he's going to do what nobody else has done. He's ruthless and amoral and rich, and he suddenly has a lot of time on his hands, and he figures he's going to do what nobody else has done, and he's going to try to beat Jesse Stone. Um,
Amazing. Amazing. So some very, very rich person coming to town and wreaking a lot of havoc on a previously established governmental system.
I know, crazy, right?
I
Thank God
know.
nothing like that would ever happen in real life.
Hold on. Wait, there's a question in the Q&A
Sure.
here. If I'm smart enough to. Okay, here we go. Now that Tom Selleck is getting up in years, oh, ouch, Tom Selleck catching. Do you think there may be any other TV episodes? And if so, who would play your Jesse Stone? I love this question.
That's a
Love
great question.
if they get this back on the air, who would play Jesse Stone? It's a great
Yeah.
question.
All right. Prefacing this by saying I have no connection whatsoever with the TV or film side of it. It's not up to me. No idea. It's like, but I would love to. I think in my dream casting for Jesse Stone right now would be Ben Affleck
Oh
because
wow.
he's a guy, yeah, who understands wrestling with your demons. I mean, not only he's a very good actor and obviously a good writer in his own right, but he's a guy who understands wrestling with your demons, and he's got the physical presence to play Jesse. He looks like he could be an ex-jock and a cop, and he's handsome enough and smart enough and all those other things. But I think that he could understand the soul of the character very well. Jesse is a guy who has a lot of pain, and it seems like Affleck understands that.
Totally. And he's very, very Massachusetts.
Yes, and
He's a
yes.
deeply Massachusetts person.
Yeah, these are deeply regional books too. That's the thing, is that Paradise doesn't actually exist, but the places it's based on exist.
Yeah, and like
And
Spencer was all Boston, right? Or was he sort of in and out
all
of Boston?
Boston.
Yeah,
He was all
yeah,
Boston. He'd like go to LA sometimes for a case or something,
yeah,
but his Boston is very, I mean, it's like you can find places in the books to the actual like street corners.
yeah.
You can
It's
find,
pretty fun. It's pretty fun. That I love that. I love books like that. I've written books like that where it's
mhm.
so it's just like set somewhere. It's deeply rooted in the place. And I think that like
Yeah,
but so Paradise is an invention, but but like over the course of all of these novels, it becomes a real place. In other words, like the sort of
absolutely.
becomes mapped out and all that stuff. I was
Yeah,
trying to remember the Spencer novel. There's one where he goes to LA and it's like about studio executives and
yeah.
do you know the one I'm talking about? I'm gonna look it up.
I do actually. I just read it not too long ago, and I can't remember the name. But yeah, he's hired out there to protect an actress,
That's right. That's right. And
and
they go
it's
to all the places.
yeah,
Clearly, Parker had just been in LA and had eaten at this place. Like it was just all felt so real. I loved it.
yeah,
Oh, the
yeah. It's like
questions are piling up.
yo, okay, yeah. Let's yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, no,
Susan,
no, no.
Susan wants to know how long does it take you to write a novel?
It depends.
Always
This book
depends.
got done in about. I really I hate to say this because it creates an unrealistic expectation for my next books, and it also sounds like bragging. But this book took about 3 months end to end because, um, as I said at the event that we were at last week, Ben, is that it was the year that I got this job. It was a great thing that I got this job because it was a big help and a lifesaver and a real honor. But it was also a galactically bad year in other ways. And we had a lot of stuff on our plate. And so I had to push writing further and further to the end. And I'd plotted it out and I'd figured it all out. But the actual writing took about 3 months.
Amazing. I mean, the thing is, though, you say that, but the plotting of it all out, that isn't not part of the writing. You know what I mean? Like
Sure.
you could plot for a month and then write for 3 months. I would still say that novel took you 4 months to write from conception to
Yeah.
conclusion.
Yeah. In the end, then, I mean, I wrote the first two chapters when I got the job. So it took a year overall
Year
from the
end to
first
end.
chapter to
Yeah.
yeah, with a big sprint at the end. It was a slow marathon and then running really fast.
It's funny that question, and I've tried to answer it myself over the years. Like, how long does it take
Mhm.
to write a novel? And like, it's such a, first of all, it varies so much from book to book. And also, it just honestly, it depends on whether there's a contract for the novel. Is somebody waiting for the novel? Like, there's a novel I've been working on for years that just,
Yeah.
because I don't have a gig for it, no one's waiting for it. Like, it might take me another 5 years to finish it, but that's not of continuous work, right? If something is the
No.
main gig and you're getting paid for it, then it tends to come out a lot quicker.
Yeah. Yeah. When somebody says here's a check and a deadline, you're like,
Yeah.
that moved up to the front.
That's
That's
exactly right. That
this
becomes
is what
front
we got.
burner. Yeah. Usually I think it's
Yeah,
about
there's a book I've been working on for 5 years now, and it's God only knows when it's going to get done because nobody's bought it yet. But
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Okay, hold on. Sharon, someone asked, someone stole my question about Tom Selleck. So she had the same question.
oh yeah.
I love it. But she also says, thanks for putting Healy and Dix and assorted thugs and bums into Buried Secret. There is a nice collection of thugs and bums in the book. It's got a nice,
Yeah,
like, rough around the edges feel to it. Some real down and dirty characters, which is really fun.
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so. I love Dix as a character. I was really glad to end Healy too. Um, I was really happy to be able to put both of them in, and I think Dix especially is important um, because one thing Parker always did is he tried to take some of the stigma away from therapy, and like
Mm,
a lot of his people are broken, and he says, "Well, great, go get fixed up, go talk to somebody about this."
so
I think
interesting.
that was a really really smart thing to do because
It's so
most PIs they're like, I'll bleed on the inside. I'll just I'll take all my pain and my suffering and I'll put it down here in a little ball and then one day I'll die. And it's
Well,
just
it is though, but it's funny because we were talking about Marlowe before, like the whole sort of
mhm.
ethos, or certainly with Dashiell Hammett, like the ethos
Right.
of this genre, and I mean specifically the sort of American branch of the mystery genre, which is opposed to the sort of British branch that became the sort of drawing room,
Right.
country house thing,
Hmm.
American thing. San Francisco and then LA became very much about, and then Chicago, like tough
Yeah.
guys,
Yeah.
guns,
Tough guys.
punching, like, and as you
blood.
said, the expression of emotion, which is part of what's so interesting about Parker and his characters having this sort of playful and openly emotional and like, he just loves his girl. You know what I mean? Like those
Yeah,
early Spencer novels, he just loves that girl so much. And like
yeah,
there's a kindness to it and an openness that is very pleasing, you know?
yeah. And I mean, he cooks. That was really revolution. And he quotes English poets, and he knows Yeats, and and like everybody thought he was crazy because he could quote Yeats. Um, and yeah, he loves Susan. And there was a great. I recently read for the first time Early Autumn, which I never thought I would like. It's the book where he meets Paul and takes care of him for the first time. And I was like, that sounds incredibly dull to me. I'm just never going to read it. So I finally read it,
Yeah.
and it is probably my favorite Spencer book now.
Oh, amazing. It's called Early Autumn. Actually, I don't think I've read that one. It's great.
Yeah, it's all about him forging a father-son relationship with this fatherless kid, and
Mm.
him telling him at one point or another, "This is all I have in me. This is all I've got." And that's I barely have enough to keep myself going right now. You're gonna have to be satisfied with this. And it's such an amazingly self-aware and smart statement, and not something you would think you would get from a macho, PI in the 1970s or 80s.
Someone should write, I'm sure someone has, there's a book about the sort of slow emergence of a different form of masculinity in American detective fiction. And like this
Yeah.
sort of like the emergence of I don't know, a different kind of man and a willingness to talk in that way. I think it's really cool. It's really interesting.
Mhm.
Like John Connolly, who I know we both like, is not American, but his like, or is
Right.
he? No, like he's
No,
like,
no, no, he is. He's Irish, but
but
his
like
stuff
his
is,
hero is so as such a poet's soul, you know what I mean? And is
yes.
so has, I don't know. There's a magic
There's
to that.
no, yeah, Charlie Parker. Yeah, if any of you people in the audience haven't read the John Connolly Charlie Parker books, they're amazing, and there's no trace of an accent. I have no
Yeah.
idea how John does it, but it's like Charlie Parker is a New York detective who goes to Maine, and you would swear to God that the guy who wrote this has lived in both places all his life.
Yeah, it's wild.
Oh, there's a question in the
Oh, I
in
got it.
the chat.
Oh, wait, in the chat or in the
Yeah, in the chat.
oh, in the chat.
Yeah.
I lost the chat. And then we have more questions in our question box. So okay, hold on.
Okay. Whichever way you want to go. I want.
Okay, Christopher, I've been reading Parker books since 1972, read them all. God bless. Did you
Mm-hmm.
come to the Boston area and the North Shore to scout out the area to write the book? The best part of the Parker books was his wise ass comments. I often find myself loud. Do you feel you have his wise ass sarcastic voice in your books?
Right. I'm as my mom, who I think is watching, will tell you, I was always a wise ass and sarcastic growing up. So I tried really hard to get that. Like I tried to think of a funnier and smarter man and do what he did. I did not visit Boston specifically for this book. My brother went to school there. I've been there many times over the years. But I really need to go to Marblehead and Swampscott and those places and like get the actual feel for it.
You
Um,
will. You will. I mean,
I
the
hope,
book
yeah.
it reads very honest. And like I spent a lot of time in that area and it feels very true to me.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
I
I'm
used to
glad.
drive back and forth from Boston to Concord, New Hampshire when I was writing The Last Policeman. Because that's that
Oh,
and I
yeah.
love that whole area. I used to stop at the Robert Frost house on the way because I'm a nerd.
Yeah.
We have a question here. Our mutual friend Daryl Gregory, who writes,
Daryl.
Daryl is on the Zoom. He writes, when you're writing something like this, it's work for hire. This is a very writerly question. That's
Yes.
work for hire. Do you feel while you're writing that you own it, or is there some emotional distance?
Everybody should also read Daryl Gregory's books.
Yes. Yes.
They're fantastic, incredibly heartbreaking and smart and wonderful and wise and scary. You got to be prepared for the scary. But in answer to Daryl's question, I did feel a lot of ownership in this. I'm surprised, it didn't feel like work for hire. It felt like I think I especially wanted to make sure I didn't let the side down. I felt like I was being given a chance to play for the varsity team, and I, whatever that would feel like, because obviously I was not a jock in high school, but I felt like somebody was handing me this incredible chance, and I didn't want to screw it up. So I felt a lot of ownership, and I felt a lot of obligation to get it right.
You know, it's such an interesting question. And I think there have been times in my career, I don't know about you, Chris, where like there are things that are feel more like jobs or works for hire. Certainly in
Hmm.
television, there's
Yeah.
stuff with it's just much more, it feels like much more of a gig. But the thing about writing is that once you start doing it, once you engage with something, it's very hard to maintain any kind of distance. Like to do
Yeah.
it well by any kind of standard, I think you sort of have to love it at some point.
Yeah.
Whether
You have to love what you're doing.
yeah.
You got to put my the guy who convinced me to leave pre-law in college and become a writer, my teacher, John Rumber, he said, writing is just the process of naming the things you love. You
Oh,
have to have the love for it. I know he's so fucking smart. So excuse me, so smart. You have to love it. And yeah, like even yeah, you and I have both done work for hire on the TV side, and it's a lot easier to have emotional distance from that because somebody's going to come and hack it to death. Um, and it was your child, and then they're going to be like, yeah, but I think it has to be this way.
yeah.
But you still feel
I love it.
responsibility and love for it.
Yeah. Okay, next question from Carol, who asks,
Yeah.
you thought, wait, I feel like you wrote down. You thought that you always wanted to be a writer. When did you first write your first comic? Sell it to friends. I feel like this is an insider.
Yeah,
It's a specific question.
that's my mom. That's my mom,
Oh,
Carol Whiteman.
oh my
Yeah.
God. I love it.
Hi,
Hello.
mom.
It's really
Mom,
sweet.
yeah, mom, Mrs. Ben. Ben's a good friend.
It also
Um,
says, why didn't you ever clean your room? And
exactly. Why were
I
you?
know that
Yeah,
you used to smoke. I'm just kidding.
yeah.
Okay, go.
My first comic book I wrote in fourth grade. My mom generously contributed by running it off the photocopier at her job, and I sold copies to my friends for 25 cents a piece, and made so much money that the principal had to get involved.
Oh, amazing. To get a cut.
He was
In for his-
no, he was like, I'm not sure you should be profiting off your classmates like this. Like
This
he
is
didn't
amazing.
care for it.
Do you still have the comics anywhere? Are they?
Yes, my mom has them somewhere.
Oh
Yeah,
my. When I
yeah,
was
they're
in fourth
terribly.
grade, I also wrote a comic. It was more of a short story,
Hmm.
but my friend illustrated it about a pig who kept
Hmm.
getting pulled in various funny ways. And I believe that I gave them to my friends, Chris. I'm not
Yeah,
comparing, I'm not judging, but I believe mine were gratis.
my
So
principal would have loved you much more than me. He was like, "This is awfully commercial of you, Chris." I've always had an eye for the main chance, the Bucks.
okay, good question, Carol. God bless. Wait, is your mom watching us from Idaho?
And she is. Yeah.
Amazing. Sharon asked, Ben, did you create Tracker and do you do the screenwriting for it weekly? I did create Tracker. I wrote for it in the first season. I'm no longer writing for the show, but I did create Tracker, which, if anyone else is interested, is on CBS on Sunday nights. Comes back this coming Sunday. We're halfway through
Yeah.
season. Um,
Ben is here to bring a little the glamour of Hollywood,
as you can tell.
as
You
you
can
can
tell.
tell.
I'm very glamorous. Tracker is based on a novel by Jeffrey Deaver. I don't know if you've ever
That's
met
right.
Jeff. He's a nice guy. But he writes, some great thrillers. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that actually exhausts our question file. Is there
Yep.
anything I'm looking on the chat file? And I'm trying to think if I have any more questions for you while I've got you. Is there anything, Chris, that we
Hmm.
didn't get to that you think it would be fun to talk about in terms of this book or the next one or just the Parker universe?
Um,
Yeah.
let's see. We've got a few minutes.
I'm just trying to think about
Yeah,
any
I
more.
mean, I could.
Go ahead.
Do we have any more questions?
No, I don't see more.
I
Guys,
just
if
want.
you have more questions, pop them in, but we'll hang
Okay.
on.
We didn't talk about what happened to the inciting incident for this book.
Oh, you
Um,
mean the true story that led to the
the
first
true,
chapter?
yeah, the true behind the scenes thing. I don't
Right,
know
tell
though.
us.
I mean, it's kind of creepy.
That's currently, yeah, it's not that creepy. It's a little creepy.
Okay.
Go ahead, tell us the story.
Yeah. So I had a neighbor who was a very mysterious guy, and he lived right next door to us. And um, for about 7 8 years, he would like leave in the middle of the night, blasting out of his garage in his souped up year 2000 Corvette, and I was always wondering what is going on with this guy. And he was an older man, and he would disappear for weeks at a time. And we tried to, we reached out to him. We're like, "Hey, you want to come over for dinner and stuff like that?" And he's like, "No, yeah." He always said yes, but never actually showed. And his name was Bert. And then one day, on Valentine's Day, actually, uh, about 10 years ago now, 11 years ago tomorrow, somebody knocked on our front door and said, "Hey, I'm friends with Bert next door, and I haven't seen him in about a month. Have you guys seen him lately?" And I automatically knew that this was not going to be a great day. So I hopped the fence and I went in the back, and the sliding glass door was open just like I described, and the house is just like I described it in the first chapter. And I was a reporter. I have been around dead bodies before, and so I knew what the smell was in the house. So I came back out and I sat with his friend and I said, "Let's just wait until the police come." And he told me all about Ben's life, about Bert's life.
Oh, no.
Sorry.
That's
Yeah. Bert's life as the premier party crasher in Los Angeles. That this 80-year-old guy would like just show up at movie premieres or club openings or the Playboy Mansion, and he would just walk in as if he belonged. And you can see him in the background photos of all these like press events and like publicity shots, and like here's Robert De Niro, and here in the background is Bert, and you can see him wearing his members only jacket and his baseball cap. And he just had this weird secret life.
Amazing. And now he's crashing a great party in the sky.
Yeah. Now he's with all the real A-listers now.
Okay, we have one last question here, which is a fitting one. What is next for both of you? Chris, I know you're working on the next novel. We know that.
Yeah, I'm working on Jesse Stone 23, and I'm also writing hopefully my own detective story. So
what's does Jesse Stone 23 have a title yet?
Not yet. I haven't figured out a good one yet. Okay. Buried Secrets came to me pretty much the first day, but yeah, this is a little harder. And
would this come out in 26, we think?
It's scheduled for 26.
So exciting. I am writing a book that I've just started, and I have an Audible original coming out next month. If you guys are Audible people, I've been writing these cool radio things for Audible. That comes out.
They're very cool. They're very good. What's the next one?
It's called Hitchhikers.
What's it called?
Hitchhikers.
Cool.
Like a weird sci-fi thing. So yeah, check that out. And I don't know, trying to write a new TV show, doing all this stuff. But this is great. Chris, thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you for doing it. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
It's a real favor.
So folks, let's give Ben and Christopher a big virtual round of applause once more for a great discussion. Thank you to everyone tuning in, especially Chris's fellow author buddy and Chris's mom. That was great. So folks, look for an email from me. Those watching live, look for an email from me in a few moments with the recording, as well as a link to Wellesley Books if you haven't purchased a copy yet. Christopher and Ben, let me ask you one last question. Where can folks learn more about you and your works? Do you have a website? Are you on social media? Do you have a newsletter? How can people follow you?
Yeah, I am. The best way to follow me is to go to my website, chrisfarnsworth.com. And you should have all the links to my books, and you can subscribe to my newsletter there if you want to, which is very infrequent. I promise not to bother you too much.
benhwinters.com. I do have social media, but I don't use it very much anymore. I should. I know that I should, but I don't. So it's just the website, really. But thank you.
You can see pictures of my dog on my Instagram account. But that's really all it's for.
My dog is back. Oh, there she is.
Oh,
yeah. That's an incentive to follow Chris on Instagram. You'll get some dog photos. So, folks, thank you all so much for joining. And thank you, Christopher. Thank you, Ben, for a great conversation. I hope everyone has a great rest of their evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Robert. Thanks,
Thank
Ben.
you.